Hello, everybody. Welcome to With Self Respect Leads to Self Love, the old you versus the new you, and also you minding your own business radio podcast. I'm your host. Y'all know who I am by now. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. You can also find this episode on my podcast, From Darkness to Light, and then also Perfectly Imperfect Radio Podcast on YouTube. I appreciate you guys for joining me for this episode. Y'all cannot see me because I'm having camera issues on my computer. It stalls, so there's no point in seeing my face at this point. But I really appreciate you guys for joining me for this particular episode. If you guys like the commentary, please hit the like, subscribe, and notification button to receive notifications of my videos. I'm also doing this on TikTok as well. A little bit about me. I'm a certified recovery, healing, and recovery coach. It's all about helping people on their paths, journeys to a new and better you through self discovery. I also help people with addiction. This podcast is also on iHeartRadio, Amazon, Google, Spotify, Cashbox, and multiple other streaming companies as well. Now, each one of these podcasts have something to do with healing recovery in different aspects. You minding your own business is exactly that. You minding your own business and focusing on yourself and what you need to do for yourself, being the best version for yourself instead of being Captain Save a Hose, Build a Bears, Build a Dolls, Seed Fillers, and People Please. It is also for with self respect leads to self love. It's all about healing your self esteem, self worth, self value, the love of yourself, believing in yourself when no one else does, your confidence, your self respect. And when it comes to you, it's about healing the old version of you in order to become a new and better version of yourself. Now, this conversation is going to go a little bit deep as far as what we will be discussing today. We will be discussing no parent and child contact. Okay. Now, this is probably going to hit people very, very hard. Some of y'all going to be crying. Some of y'all is going to bring back some very bad memories. So I'm going to do a disclaimer. This going to hit below the belt. It's going to be hard for me to do it because as someone that is the invisible child, I am the one that it's going to be very hard for me. So imagine being the person that's doing it. Now, first of all, before we even get into this no parent contact, no child contact, we got to figure out how we got here. How is it that throughout time it has now become a place to where there's no children contact, no parent contact? How did we get here? Now, mind you, there's many different reasons why this is happening as far as no child and no parent contact. Now, what made me decide to talk about this is Oprah Winfrey when she did her podcast and had a panel of people, not only parents, but also children that were talking about the no parent contact. They had therapists, they had different people that were talking about this particular subject, and I decided to speak on it because, as someone that was the invisible child, I understand why the invisible child does not talk to their family. I really do. Now, the invisible child, the reason they don't talk to their family, because their family is the reason they screwed up. They don't talk to their family because they were the ones that were trying to do the right thing. They were the ones that were trying to make good grades, the ones that they like to call the responsible one, the one that they always say you don't never need because you're strong and independent. Not understanding you were the primarily one that actually did need them more than anybody. Now, the one thing about raising an independent child is there are some disadvantages to that. And that is you don't trust nobody. And you're putting the world on your shoulders. And that starts from childhood. Now, as somebody that is a healing coach, this part of it, of that healing part, is the hardest part to heal from. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's hard, it is difficult, and it is one of them things when I tell you it's gonna hurt, it is absolutely going to hurt. Now, let me say this. When it comes to this particular topic, the reason it is so hard for people to talk about is because it's going to make you cry. Because it's going to take you back to when your parents, when you had that sibling, and that sibling's the golden child, the one they act, the one that is the apple of their parents' eye, the one that they will do any and everything for, the one that no matter what this child does, they will bail this child out. No matter what. Best birthday parties, best clothes, best shoes. They'll pay their way through school. They will do everything for these kids. But when it comes to the one that's never got in trouble, the one that tried to live up to their expectations, is expected. But your sibling can make a C and they'll celebrate it. Your sibling can go and wreck a car, go to jail, they'll bail them out. These are the parents that no matter what they do, they ain't never gonna have to deal with consequences. Now, why is this important? Well, these are the people you're now dating. You're now dating these children that are the golden children, unfortunately. You're now actually dating them. Now, when it comes down to this particular subject, and when you talk about no parent contact, it could be everything from abuse to your mama allowing her boyfriend to do something to you, SA. It can have everything to do with your mama and them putting stuff in your name. It can have everything to do with the fact that when you were 16, they made you work and that you were paying the bills while your sibling didn't have to pay for nothing and they got to live rent free. It was the fact that you had to constantly hear how your parents wish you were never born and break your self-esteem, self-worth, and self-value. These are the parents that had you at a young age. These are the ones that as soon as your daddy decides to up and leave, they pretty much don't want you no more. These are the ones that are constantly dropping you off at your grandma's house and dropping you off at everybody's house, pretty much. These are those type of parents. These are the parents that when they get a stepchildren or have half siblings, they all of a sudden don't want nothing to do with you no more. You don't exist anymore. Now, the one thing that I've learned in these particular situations is that most people are messed up because of their parents. Most people are purely and completely messed up because of their parents. There are kids that did nothing wrong. All they wanted was their parents' love. All they wanted was their parents' support. Their parents didn't go to any of their events. Matter of fact, didn't even go to their wedding. Didn't even left them out on Christmas. Told them not to even come home for Christmas. Told them that basically, essentially, we don't want you here. And now these kids have to deal with the fact that their family wants nothing to do with them, but yet they want you to pay their bills. Yet they want you to basically be the one that's always the one giving all the time. But yet and still, when it comes to your sibling, they'll always make up excuses why the sibling's not helping. Oh, she's fragile. He's fragile. These are the parents that basically, essentially, wants you to lower yourself because you're making the other sibling look bad. You're the one that works 2 or 3 jobs in college, and your parents don't want to pay your way through school. You the one that they said, oh, your grades ain't good enough to go to college, but yet your siblings' grades are a C, but yet they'll pay their way through school. These are the parents that basically, essentially, you have to cook and clean while they go to work and take care of the little ones. Yeah, that's you. You are the invisible child. Most of the children that don't have anything to do with their parents are the invisible child. This is a child that basically, essentially, never had a relationship with their parents, could never come to their parents about nothing. Even when they told them about their sibling and all the stuff they did negatively, they make excuses for it. It can even be a situation where your sibling gets into an accident and they tell you to cover it, telling you to take the fall for something that your sibling did. These are the ones that your siblings can be very violent and they'll just cover it up. There are millions and millions of children that have been unalived due to abuse. And some children actually survive it and don't want no contact. It can also be where you have kids that are in the industry that basically essentially made their parents a lot of money. And when they got older, they didn't see none of that money. Gary Coleman, Macaulay Culkin, Jaden Smith, Webster, are just some of the examples of children that emancipated from their. Hold on a second. Give me a second. Let me tell this person that I'm. Hold on for their call back because they're gonna call back in a second. I told you. Hold on. So give me a second. Let me let this person know I'm on live because I don't have my phone on silent. I need to put my phone on silent. I haven't figured out. I have an iPhone 17 Plus and I haven't quite figured it out yet. But anyway, let's continue. Sorry, y'all. I had to tell somebody I was on the phone. But anyway, let's talk about it. You have a lot of kids that probably would have never went through the things they went through if their parents would have loved them the way they deserve to be loved. If their parents loved them the way they deserve to be loved, I think a lot of these kids would not be getting in no trouble. They would not be going through the things that, in all honesty, that they're going through right now. A lot of girls probably would have got pregnant if their fathers would have been more so in the picture. Now, I'm not saying that kids are perfect. I'm not saying that kids ain't gonna sneak out the house. I'm not saying that there are things that kids do that are not gonna be wrong. I ain't never gonna say that. But at the same time, there were kids that actually wanted to do the right thing. But because their parents made it seem like nothing they did was good enough, it trickles down to your friends, it trickles down to these romantic relationships, it trickles down to your job. So now it's like you're doing things to prove that you can be successful, but yet you're paying their bills. The same parents that treated you bad and put the golden child on a pedestal, these are the same parents that I'm talking about in this particular situation. Now, at the end of the day, is it fair that, these kids go through this? No, it's not. Everything with an invisible child is expected. Everything with an invisible child is you suck it up, act like it didn't happen, act like it didn't exist, cover it up. But that golden child, they gonna go and take care of their knee, take care of whatever they need to take care of. But that child that they didn't want, they're not gonna do that. Now, even though for some people they may say, well, none of what I'm saying is true. Yes, it is. And it's something we have to take accountability for. It's just like these kids in the industry that grow up in the industry. And they out here taking care of their parents, and they turn 18 and they don't have none of the money that their parents made off of them. They don't see none of that money. So when it comes to being that golden child will throw in that invisible child's face that they're not the golden child. So let me give you a couple of examples of what I'm talking about. You have a situation where you may have a child that grew up, mom and dad didn't pay their way through school. Mom and dad were never at the events. Mom and dad always put expectations on them to be the best of the best. But their other sibling, they didn't have to do that. They could do the bare minimum. So you go to them and say, you want to have a birthday party. Oh, we can't. I got to take your sister to a cheerleading practice. But what about me? Oh, I got to take your sister to the studio. But what about me? So it doesn't even matter that this other child has dreams and goals. All you care about is your golden child. So this other child has to go to these events by themselves, or they'll say to you, they don't want you to outshine your sister. You got to stay in the background. So now you're being programmed to be in the background. You're programmed that you have to lower yourself because you're scared that if you do better than your sibling, then it's going to be a situation where you're going to be the one that's going to get in trouble. So when you go to college and you're working 3 jobs while your sister is or brother is speeding through, not even paying for nothing, or they ask you to pay your siblings' tuition. So now you got money. So here come your parents asking you to not only pay for their mortgage because they can't pay for their mortgage. Now they want you to pay off your brother's car, your sister's this, do all that. That's not my responsibility. That's your responsibility. Why am I doing your job as a parent? And why is it that my sibling, who is your golden child, why is it that they're not helping out? Oh, because they're sensitive. They don't have them stuff together. They're still trying to figure it out. Okay. So it's okay for them to figure it out, but I can't figure it out. I can't figure out where my life is going, but yet and still, they can sit there and play PlayStation all day. They can go shopping, and you bought them $100,000 car, but you buy me a used Hyundai. Oh, okay. So these are the things I'm talking about. So now this child that basically is the invisible child grows up, goes to college, graduation, you ain't there. You telling her she can't go to prom because her sister is going through depression because she's going to prom. So now she can't go to prom because my sister has depression. So because my sister's going through a breakup, I can't go to prom. I can't do what I want to because I got to wait for my sibling, depending on how they feel. I can't do this because I got to worry about this. So it's like some kids, when they get 18, mom and them like, we're kicking you out. You got to move out. But yet my sibling can stay there rent free. Local school while she gets to go to Yale and Harvard because she's the chosen one. She's the one you brag about. He's the one that you think gonna be the next NBA basketball player or the next NFL or NHL player or whatever you want to call it. And so because the other child's not athletic, you don't care nothing about that child. Even though that child wants to be an engineer, even though an engineer will probably make more money in the long run than your athlete. But okay, I'll let you tell it. Now, why is all of this important? Because when these invisible children start getting in relationships, this is why they go through what they go through. This is why they're lowering themselves. This is why they're bending over backwards, being Captain Save-A-Ho, Build-A-Bears, Build-A-Dolls, seat fillers, and people pleasers. It is the reason why they're constantly being used and taken advantage of, because guess what? Their parents did it when they were younger. That is the reason why a lot of these invisible children will bend over backwards and be with men or women that they know don't want them, but because they want to be loved so bad, because they have no idea what it's like to be in love, what it's like to have somebody truly care about them, they'll accept anything. So they'll do the threesomes, they'll do all of these different things to keep this person, spend money, do all of these things to make this person happy. Why? Because they have post-traumatic slave disorder. Their parents never wanted them in the first place. So you brought a child into the world that you never wanted because that man is no longer in the picture, or you wanted a boy. So now because you want a boy, now it's like, okay. Now it's like, okay. Well, now I'm just going to treat this child like trash. Now, mind you, this ain't always the whole entire scenario. There are other scenarios where a child may decide they're gay and the parents don't accept their lifestyle and the parents don't want to talk to them. So I'm going to use Cliff and Claire when it came to Elvin and when it came to Elvin and Sandra. When Elvin said, I didn't want to be a doctor. And Sandra said, I didn't want to be a lawyer. The look on Cliff and Claire's faces when them two said they did not want to be a doctor or a lawyer. This is another example of the no parent contact. This is when you find out that your child, the one that you said was going to be a doctor, tells you, I don't want to be a doctor. This is the one where the child ends up being hooked on drugs, alcoholic, end up having promiscuous sex, and you in the church and they're embarrassing you. Now, the no parent contact is a little bit different, okay? Hi, y'all. The no parent contact is when your child is abusive towards you. You have no control over this golden child that you raised, the golden child that you let do whatever you want to, and they come back to bite you. So the no parent contact is when the child who they put on that pedestal decides they don't want to live the lifestyle their parents want them to do. Let's say you have a child that's 16 that you thought was a virgin, now pregnant, and now you're disappointed because they're pregnant, and you've been telling everybody that your child ain't out here having sex, and now they're pregnant, and you decide to kick them out at 16. That's no parent contact. No parent contact is when your parents just can't do nothing with you. This is like what happened to that director and his wife, the one that was in Happy Days, when his alleged son ended up unaliving his mama and his daddy because of an argument. That's what I'm talking about. So when parents cut you off, it's either you ain't living the lifestyle they want you to live, or they realize they just don't want you and just give you away and put you in foster care. Or it can be where you think you grown and I'm not dealing with it no more, so I'm kicking you out of the house. It's either my rules, my way, or the highway. And if you're not going to abide by my rules, then you got to leave my house. That part. But see, when Oprah and them talked about it, they didn't talk about it from that perspective. They didn't talk about it from the perspective of the parents that are in the church, the one that they think their daughter ain't having sex, when in all actuality she is. She run around being the ho 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 of the church. And then when they find out their daughter is being the ho 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 of the church, now it's like you're embarrassed. So when it comes to no parent contact, it can be everything from embarrassment to the child not living up to their expectations. The child is no longer useful. It could be many, many different things. But this conversation needs to be had because there is a difference. Most kids that don't want nothing to do with their parents is because their parents are never, ever, ever, ever going to acknowledge what they did to them. They're going to make excuses for it. And so when you look back at your life and you look back at everything that you went through, that love, as far as the love you wanted from your friends, the love you wanted from your family, the love that you wanted from your spouse or your significant other, that all comes from pretty much your parents. Your parents. Your parents play a pivotal part of your first relationships. They're the first relationships you ever have. And if you don't know how to be in a relationship because of the way your parents treated you, everybody else going to treat you the same way, because you're going to end up around people just like your parents. You're dating someone just like your parents. So when you got people telling you, well, maybe if you do something like that, that's being a parent. When you got somebody trying to change the way you dress, change the way you do things, that is a parent. When you got somebody influencing you to do drugs and alcohol and making you go against what your path is because you want to hang out, that's the same thing when it comes to your parents. So like I said, after a while, your kids stop listening to you. But again, you have two different types of children that deal with things two different types of way. You have that golden child that is going to turn around and say, oh, okay, well, I want a PlayStation. No, I'm not giving you a PlayStation. All these years, you've been enabling, you've been spoiling and entitling this child. And now that you're finally telling them no, oh no, they're not having that. So either they're going to be violent or they going to end up asking somebody else to get it. So if you ain't going to give it to them, they're going to ask somebody else to get it. And they're going to keep asking till they find somebody to give it to them. Well, guess what? You do that in romantic relationships as well. So if you're not getting what you want in that romantic relationship, it's not going to be any different than you doing that with your parents. It's like you have two parents that are divorced, and one of your parents, you asking them for a PlayStation, and they're like, no, I'm not giving you the PlayStation. You go to the other one. They go ahead and get it for you because they're trying to spite the other person. They didn't give it to you because they wanted to give it to you. They gave it to you to be in your good graces. And even if neither one of y'all get it for them, grandma and them gonna get it for them. So if grandma and them gonna get it, somebody gonna get it for them. At the end of the day, somebody is going to give their child whatever it is that they want. Well, guess what? These same people turn into adults and they start dating people that are the invisible child. So now they're dealing with the same golden child, except it's not their biological sibling doing the same thing. So now you have a golden child that you're now dating whose sibling went through this, and now you're dating somebody just like your sibling, and you don't even realize it. So you don't even realize you might be dating somebody that's just like your sibling, that same golden child that wants whatever they want. And if you ain't going to give it to them, they're going to find somebody else to get it from. It's just like if you have somebody that's extremely attractive and they can always get a man, they can always keep a man, and they can always keep a woman or whatever the case may be. They're not going to be faithful to you because they have options. So if somebody has options as far as getting what they want from somebody else, if you're not going to get it, that's why there's that old saying, what you won't give, somebody else will. So if somebody else going to give it to you, why would you not take it? So at the end of the day, you got people out here that are spoiled and entitled because their parents enabled them. And now you're married to them. That's why their mother and father are so much involved in their lives. And that's why they have that attitude. If I have to call my parents, then I don't need you. But the unaliving rates of people that are unaliving people because they can't get what they want, that is from that golden child syndrome. And so, like I said, you have a lot of people that are lowering themselves because they've been lowering themselves since they were a kid. And now that's their love language. Their love language is lowering themselves to build everybody else up. And that came from their parents because that's what their parents told them to do, that they have to lower themselves, that they have to suck it up and act like whatever happened to you didn't happen. So even though your sister is a terror or your brother is a terror, and they allow your brother and them to do whatever they want to as far as being abusive, because sometimes it doesn't always have to be the parents that's always being abusive. Sometimes it can be your sibling that is the abuser. So the reason that it's important to have these conversations is because you are dating the same type of people that that sibling had to deal with. So if that sibling was entitled when it came down to that other sibling, what makes you think they won't be that way when it come to you? So I know this is a lot, but when it comes down to that sibling rivalry, that's all it is, the golden child versus the invisible child. And that's why when I am coaching people, that is the first thing we're getting into, the invisible child versus the golden child. We need to have these conversations about this golden child versus the invisible child because there are a lot of people that are dating these same type of people. You are letting people that you date, your friends, the people you work for, the people that you don't know treat you the same way your parents treated you. And so it isn't until you go to, and sometimes even in counseling, it's not even discussed. It ain't. I have seen so many videos about this particular topic, many different ways that parents have put one child on a pedestal and the other one is like they don't exist, like they never wanted that child. Now, in divorces, you may have situations where one child might be upset because y'all separated and they may not take it well. And now you have a whole nother family that's stepchildren. And let's say, for example, a man or a woman passes away. And what ends up happening is you get remarried. That stepmom does not like your child. And they treat your child like they're nothing. And so now you have this situation where you're putting that stepmother's children before your own biological child. So that happens more so than not. So at the end of the day, when it comes to having the family conversation, when it comes to healing, there are a lot of layers when it comes down to it. And I do mean a lot of layers. But if you are the invisible child, I'm going to tell you now, relationships going to be hard for you because your family is not going to be your biological family. Your family going to be people that don't know you. No, that people that are not don't share the same DNA, I meant to say. So if they don't share the same DNA, those are going to be the people that's going to be your family. Sometimes your family can be people that can be your best friend. Because if you look at Fast and the Furious, that's the biggest example of that. When when Vin Diesel said family not always biological. Family can be people that come into your life in some of the most darkest times and support you. You have some people that have godmothers and people that are more closer to you and treat you more like a mother than your own mama does. People that treat you more like a father than your own dad. That's why I said infidelity is more than just romantic because it isn't just romantic. You know, some of us have tried our best to honor thy mother and thy father. We tried very hard to do that. But then we're not getting the same reciprocation when it comes to the way we were treated, because kids didn't ask to be here. You made a choice to lay your butt down somewhere and be intimate with somebody and having a baby. That baby has nothing to do with what you're putting them through. No child deserves to be an invisible child where you don't even pay them no attention. You ain't even there for that child. That child is independent because you've been ignoring them. They had to find their own way because you don't want to pay for nothing. You want to give them hand me downs. You want to give your favorite child the best of everything, and this child is left with nothing. I have seen so many young kids get abused because their parents do not want the child. Mama don't want the child. Daddy don't want the child. The child is being abused. The child is being assaulted. The child is now dead. So we have to have these conversations. Why? Because it's going right back to what I said. Y'all laying down and making it seem like there's no consequences and repercussions when it comes to having sex. Yes, there is. Children. And you can't take them back. Millions of children every day are sitting in foster care because their parents didn't want them or because they were abusing them kids. So say what you want to, and I don't want nobody to sit here and act like some of y'all don't resent your kids. And that if you could go back in time and never slept with that man and never had that child, would you? No. There are people that say they wish their kids were never born. They sit there and lower that child's self-esteem, self-worth every single day. You're not good enough. You're not worthy. Nobody ain't never gonna love you. Y'all, at the end of the day, Oprah and them did not get into this conversation the way they should have. Because there are a lot of parents that have physically, mentally, verbally, sexually assaulted a child. And that child grows up and thinks nobody loves them, kicks them out at 18 years old, kicks them out at 16 years old, not because they're hanging around the wrong type of people, but because of the fact that they're not the golden child. And that is who y'all are dating. All of y'all that talk about, well, this person always sitting at home, that's the golden child, honey. I tell women all the time, I tell men all the time, talk to the sibling. Don't talk to the parents, talk to the sibling. Because that sibling is going to tell you the truth about their sibling. I don't talk to the parents because I know the difference between a child that is the golden child and a child that is an invisible child. I talk to that sibling because that sibling gonna tell me about how that person is. Because a lot of y'all are dating golden children. A lot of y'all are dating these same spoiled, entitled children that sibling who was the invisible sibling had to deal with. Y'all have no idea what that invisible sibling had to go through. The fact that they were abused by that sibling, the fact that they had to lower themselves because that sibling was in their feelings. Let me give you an example. There was this story that I heard where, and it was today, it blew my mind today. The girl was getting married. Her sister, because she had anxiety, because she was having this beautiful wedding and she wasn't going to be the center of attention, destroyed her whole entire reception. What did the parents do? Don't be so sensitive. You know she has anxiety. Don't you give me that. Y'all been saying that for years, that this child got insecurity issues. What does that got to do with the fact that she destroyed my wedding? So she gets so upset that she just disappears. Just disappears and leaves. They all of a sudden decide they're going to proclaim her dead to take her insurance money to give it to the sibling. her insurance money. She gets a phone call from the insurance company saying they're saying she's dead. They forged her signature. You got parents that will forge your signature to buy your sibling a house. You have parents that will, you out of the country working. You got a good job. You're an engineer, and they want you to pay for your sibling's car. They want you to pay your sibling's rent. And you like say, what now? Why am I paying my sibling's rent? That ain't my responsibility. They make it so you are now the additional parent, like you're the dad, like you're the other mother. And I'm just sitting there like, no. Your parents took your inheritance. Like, say, for example, your grandmother gave you a house that when you turn 18, you're supposed to get that house. They gave that house to your sibling. They took your inheritance and lied to you and gave it to your sibling. There was one where the parents said, are you enjoying your $800,000? She's like, what $800,000? Well, I gave you $800,000. I don't know nothing about no $800,000. Then it came out that the mother didn't even tell her about the money. Gave it to the sister, and they spent all but $100,000 of it. So now the father ends up not only having them locked up, but ends up taking them to jail and going to court. So now they got to pay restitution plus damages plus paying for the court costs. So you went through all of that. So now you got to pay more money. I'm telling y'all, there have been parents that have left their kids, abandoned their kids, and then when the kids get some type of inheritance or they do well, here they come. I heard you doing well. And? Well, I just thought maybe you'd want to share. Share what? What am I sharing? Why in the world, after all these years, you're coming waltzing in my door? After all these years, like I want something to do with you. I've been without you for all these years. Why do I want to deal with you now? Why would I even want anything to do with you? And considering you abandoned me, you took my sibling and left me by myself in a house where I'm 14, 12 years old. I'm in foster care. You send me to my grandmother while y'all go out and run the streets somewhere. You always dropping me off somewhere. And now you mad because I ain't got no respect for you. Now you mad because now that I got an inheritance that my grandmother who raised me, now here you come saying I can't manage it. Now you want to come because I'm successful. I'm an engineer. I'm a business owner. I made $2.5 billion. And here you are. Now you're saying you're proud of me. You're suing me because I bought a house. You let my sister live in my house while I was going overseas contracting. You can't be serious right now. So I need people to understand something. There are kids that got every single right to not have no contact with their parents, especially after everything they did to them, everything they have allowed to do to them. Do you know how hard it is to have to relive all of that? And then you start thinking about your romantic relationships, your friendships, and you see it's still the same revolving door. See, Oprah and them didn't go into this the way I went into it. But it's a conversation that we really need to have here. It's not even about the romantic relationships. You got to start back to parent issues. Because these were the first relationships that you were in. And when you went through that abandonment from your parents, now that is the reason you made the choices as far as who you chose. Because number one, your parents are the ones that broke your self-esteem, self-worth, and self-value before anybody else did. They disrespected you before anybody else did. So am I saying any of this to be wrong? No. I just want people to understand that when it comes to healing and recovery, you can't be in any relationship until you deal with your parents first and your sibling. Until you get boundaries with your family, you ain't gonna have boundaries with anybody else. Until you acknowledge what has been done to you by your parents, by your family, that is when everything will change when it comes to you making better choices, when it comes to everything else. Literally. So, am I saying all of this to be mean? No. There are some parents that don't even realize the damage they've caused. And there are some of them that do. There are kids that are in the ground right now. And the parents still have not made amends for what they did to those children. See, that's why I said when it comes to making amends, you might want to make amends while the child is still alive, while your parents are still alive. Now, don't get me wrong, this go both ways. It really do. Because there are kids out here that do stuff to their parents, all because they spoiled and entitled. So let me use Dr. Simone, for example, because that's the next one I'm going to do. When it came to Simone, everybody talking about them kids are wrong for the fact of the way they act. No, she made them that way. Dr. Simone from Dr. Simone from Married to Medicine made her children what they are. She is the one that spoiled and entitled those kids. And now that spoiled and entitlement is coming back to bite her. Because when you keep giving your kids everything they want and they don't have to pay for it, everything is handed to them on a silver platter, what tends to happen is that's going to come back to bite you. And what happens is if it don't bite you, it's going to end up biting the person they're married to. It's going to bite anybody associated with them. These are people that basically feel like they're entitled. So I'm going to see if I can play one of these stories, right? Just to give y'all an example of what I'm talking about. So I have a story and I got to pull it up. Hopefully I won't get copyright for it. I hope not. But I'm going to play one of these stories that I've been listening to, just some of it, about this particular issue because, like I said, this stuff happens more so than not. But we got to break this down in layers because you have some kids that don't have siblings at all, but you have step kids, you have step kids, you have half siblings, you have kids that are biologically yours. So there's a lot of different ways you can discuss this, but it's not just one conversation. You really got to talk about it in multiple layers. You got to talk about it in multiple different ways of looking at it. So when it comes down to the no parent contact, I understand that too. But primarily the reason there's no contact with parents is because either that child stopped paying or really the child got tired of the abuse and they just started pretty much just now they're expressing what they've been through. So let me see if I can find one. Bear with me a second. I'm just trying to find one that I think I want y'all to listen to. Bear with me just 1 second. I'm just trying to find one that I think will be good to listen to and that way you guys can see it. So give me a second. Because, like I said, the stories I listen to, they go both ways. It can be where it can be a situation where um wait, because what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to find one, and then I'm gonna let you guys hear it. But I just think it's important that we understand boundaries and standards. But you'll be amazed how much damage your parents have done to you. That is the cause of why you're antisocial, why self-worth is what it is. Because the one thing that we do not talk about when it comes to healing and recovery is how do we really recover from the damage that we've done? Because in the Bible, it does say, love thy mother and thy father. But there's also a little bit more to that. So, yes, you do want to respect and love your mother and thy father. But at the same time, do you deserve to be disrespected by them? Do you deserve to have your self esteem, self worth, self value, your self respect, all of that broken because of that particular, 10 commandment? So, like I said, we have this tendency of trying to justify certain things, even though they really are what they are. We try to make extenuating circumstances. Really, there is no extenuating circumstance. But in the end, a lot of this wouldn't be happening if people weren't having kids at such a young age, under the age 22. Matter of fact, under the age 25. I just think that we're rushing things. I think that we're basing our lives on things and not being realistic. But at the end of the day, not every child is going to be the same, and you shouldn't have the same expectations for each child. Each child is different. Each child is going to be good at certain things and bad at others. And that is the thing that you have to understand. If I had two kids and my son was autistic and my other child is normal, I know I have to treat them differently when it comes to certain things. But behavior is the same across board. I don't care. I'm not going to make excuses for one because they have a disability, because I'm not going to let their disability define who they are as far as their character. So even though, yes, one may have a disability and it may require a lot more, that doesn't mean that I'm not going to love my other child any less or be there for them any less, because I'm not. Not in any shape, form, or fashion am I going to do that. But if you're not ready to have kids and you still want to be young, wild, and free, and you still want to, live your life, I don't recommend having sex either. I don't recommend getting married until you are solid. Until you can afford to take care of one child, don't have what you can't afford. So, like I said, don't get me wrong, sex feels good and it's great. But having children is not worth it. Having STDs and full blown AIDS is not worth it. If you're not mentally ready to have kids, if this isn't the person you want to have kids with, then you shouldn't be having sex in the first place. Unless you can't have kids, then that is when you can go there. But if You know you can have kids. Ain't no amount of birth control, condoms, nothing gonna stand in the way of you having kids. So unfortunately, we got to start being a little bit honest here. Most women have had their firstborn kid before they turn 22, and some of them before 25. You haven't even been out in the world yet, hadn't even experienced nothing in the world, and yet y'all running around here having kids. Y'all running around here having kids like there's no consequences when it comes to having sex. Children. Children. And yet y'all get these kids and you ain't ready for them, and you're not financially ready for them, you're not emotionally ready for them, and you're not ready to sacrifice it all for them. And are we really teaching our kids life skills? No. The school system certainly are not. You're not teaching them. You're at work 8 hours a day. You're at work 8 hours a day. So you only see your kid from when you get off, maybe at 5 o'clock, from 5 to 9. So you're really around your kids where you're really actually spending time with them during the week 4 hours a day. Because when they get up in the morning, they're getting ready for school. You're dropping them off at daycare. Then you're going to work. You're picking them up at 6 o'clock. You're doing homework with them, fixing them dinner, then they're going to bed. The only time you really spend time is on the weekends. And that's when you take them out, maybe take them to a movie, do something like that. Other than that, you are not around your kids enough to raise them. The reality of it is, you cannot, as a woman, work and raise kids. We got to be honest here. We got to start being honest. You cannot raise kids without the other person. You gonna need that secondary person. You can't do it all by yourself. Now, don't get me wrong. I raised a phenomenal child with autism, but was it easy? No. We have to stop lying to these girls and making it seem like raising kids is easy. And then I see people that have 3 or 4 kids, 5 or 6 kids, and not with any of the baby daddies. So we got to have these uncomfortable conversations. We can't keep glorifying this. It is not okay for young girls under the age of 25 to be having kids. It's not okay at all. It ain't. Not at all. But it's a conversation we need to be honest about. We may have to go back to the days of girls and boys being abstinent, not having sex at all. We may have to. Because if you lay down with somebody, you get pregnant, that person decides to up and leave, you are now raising a child by yourself. You are now taking care of a kid by yourself. You barely graduated. Some of these kids are 8 or 9 years old having babies and don't know nothing about raising a child. And then you got kids that are in the foster system that never get adopted, that go through so much trauma. It's not even funny. Like I said, there's so many different directions you can go with this when it comes to that no child, no parent contact. There's many different ways. What about the women that just gave up their kids and abandoned their kids, left their kids? What about them? The ones that basically essentially never met their parents. What about the ones that are now in CPS because their parents are abusive? Or their parents say, I no longer want to be a parent no more. So again, there are a lot of different ways you can look at these situations. Many, many, many different ways. So this conversation isn't just a one-sided conversation. But for the parents, it's more than likely the reason there's no parent contact is because they never want the child in the first place, or they don't want to acknowledge what they did to that child, or that child was spoiled and entitled and turned around and pretty much made them regret it, meaning that they turned on them. and now they are being violent and being disrespectful. That or the child just don't want nothing to do with them. So again, I mean, it's a very touchy subject, but it's time that we start being real here. It's about time we start being honest about raising children and stop the lie making it seem like having children is easy. That having children at a young age is what we should be doing. At the end of the day, when it comes to no child contact and no parent contact, there are multiple different reasons why this is happening. But the main number one reason why it's happening is because you have a golden child and an invisible child. And that golden child is the one they actually wanted, and the invisible child is the one they didn't. Or the invisible child, they'll always say they're still trying to find themselves when that's not even nowhere near. You have no idea how many parents don't know nothing about their child's life. If something was to happen to their child, they've never met their friends. They never met their family. They've never met nobody in this person's life. They wouldn't even know who to contact to come to your funeral. When it comes to no child contact, 99.99% of it is that invisible child, more than likely. So this conversation goes very, 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 very deep. It go deep. And like I said, the one thing that I have learned about social media, and that is this: when it comes to these hard conversations and these hard truths, a lot of y'all don't want to hear it. You want to argue to the ground. I can pull up some receipts. So like I said, that no child contact can be for many different reasons. No parent contact, I see it from both sides, from a parent to also from being a child. But this conversation needs to take place. It does. It needs to be broken down. That's why this season on my podcast, it is about the no parent, no child contact. I do want to do a panel on this. I do want to have a panel of people that are therapists, that are coaches, that are mentors, counselors. I would love to have people that would like to tell their story about the no child, no parent contact. Because this is a safe space. And the one thing I'm not going to do is ever say that somebody's story is not valid. Every story, when it comes to anything you've gone through, is valid. It is a no judgment based platform here. I only hold you accountable for your actions, your behavior, your choices, and decisions. But as far as the things you've been through, I'm very empathetic and sympathetic as long as it is something because, you were being a good person. But everybody needs to understand that you're either dating an invisible child or you're dating a golden child. And that's why I said dating is a little bit more complicated. You cannot look at the external of a person. That is not going to tell you who they are. It's not going to tell you what they've been through. It's not going to tell you how they think and how they're going to impact and affect you based on their action, behavior, choice, and decisions. So again, we need to have some very uncomfortable conversations because this is not about romantic relationships, because we can't even have that conversation until we heal the damage that we have been through. Even as Black women, we were single mothers long before now. We were single mothers when we got here. We were single mothers when we were in slavery and we were stripped from our husbands and our kids. We've been through that. There are a lot of women that had babies. As soon as they had babies, they were put into slavery. So, it's a lot of different things that different ways to look at this, different ways to skin a cat. But the reality of it is, there are women across the board around the world that have been through human trafficking, different things like that, and lost their child. There are millions of women that have put their children up for foster care, and foster care was worse than you keeping the child. So again, we need to have this conversation about mommy, daddy, child dynamics. It should be the first conversation we have before we even dip into romantic relationships, friendships, or anything else. We need to deal with family first, because all of that trickles down. Because once you deal with your family issues mentally and psychologically and emotionally and spiritually, when I tell you that the way you're gonna deal with other people gonna be the same way. Because like I said, once you deal with your family as far as how they see you, once you accept the fact your family ain't never gonna see you a certain way, it's gonna be really easy for you to accept rejection when it comes to everybody else. When you realize that these people never cared about you in the first place, when you realize that once you walk away from your parents, if that's what you choose to do, then understand it's gonna be real easy for you to let go of everybody else right along with it. So, like I said, are these journeys easy? No. Do I think that, you know, do I say that you completely cut your family off? Depends on what they did. Now, should you forgive your family? Yes. Should you relinquish all the emotions when it comes to what they did? Yes. Should you bring them into your world if you feel like they're still going to cause chaos? No. You can deal with them from a distance, but some relationships just cannot be repaired. So you can forgive somebody and not have nothing to do with them at all. So when it comes to your parents, it's the same thing. Can you make them apologize? No. Can you make them acknowledge that what they did to you was wrong? No. Do people got to care about your feelings? No. See, that's what I'm saying. When you go through this healing and recovery stage of your life, it go right back to your parents. All of it. Everything happened because your parents were the first relationship you ever had. And if you are damaged by that, every person you deal with gonna be just like them. That's why you've been lowering yourself for these people. That's why your romantic relationships ain't working, because your parents were your first relationship as a whole. See, we got to talk about the platonic side of it. We always talk about the romantic part of it. That person didn't buy me this person didn't give me this person didn't do that. But not once do you talk about the emotional, the mental, the psychological, the spiritual abuse. You don't never talk about how this person is sitting at home all day playing the PlayStation while you're out there working. This person out here spending your money, and not once are we having these conversations for what it is. You are dating a golden, spoiled, entitled child that mom and them don't want to deal with, and the most of them passing down to you. Just handing them over to you. Some of y'all are dating them same golden children that you had to deal with when it came to your sibling. You're dating another one of your siblings. For those of y'all that are the invisible child, like I said, you want to be loved so bad because your parents didn't give it to you. And now you just want to be accepted. You want to be loved. You want to be liked. You want to be appreciated. You want to be valid. You want to be wanted. You want to be needed. You want to be a part of something, validated, approved of, and proving something. Then you want to be Captain Save-A-Ho, Build-A-Bears, Build-A-Dolls, Seat Fillers, and Peoplers. All because that is what your parents groomed you to be. Post-traumatic slave disorder. You have been a slave since you were a kid. And because your mom and them didn't want you because they had you at a young age, they didn't want you because they struggled. They don't want you because the baby daddy is no longer in the picture. They don't want you because they never wanted your mama to have you in the first place. Can we please start being honest at this point? The one thing about healing and recovery is about honesty. We're going to have to start being honest here. I don't care how uncomfortable it is for y'all. If you want to heal and recover in any way, you're going to have to accept things for what they are. That is a primary thing. It is not the way you want it to be, but exactly for what it is. And you have to decide whether you're going to deal with it or not. But see, the only difference is now you can't pick your parents. You can't pick them. But you can pick your spouse. You can pick your friends. But the one thing that you don't need to do is lower yourself like they're your parents. Y'all are dating your parents. You're dating your siblings. You're dating your family members and the people you're friends and dating. So you need to understand, if you don't heal from your family dynamic, then your romantic relationships is going to be the same situation. You're going to have somebody that's going to treat you like a child, or you going to be the parent. Why? Because they were spoiled and entitled. And now that their parents done spoiled and entitled them, they done handed them over to you. So now you're taking care of them. Why do you think that most women want their golden child to date a rich man? Man, see, I'm gonna go common sense here. Why do you think, fellas, that a mother wants her daughter to date a rich man? And why do you think for the one that's unattractive, the one that is the invisible child, they don't want them to be seen? Why do you think that is? Why do you not understand why most people are independent, male and female? Because there's always going to be the haves and the have-nots. The one that got to work the hardest, and that is also when it comes to siblings. That's also when it comes to step kids, half kids, it don't matter. As soon as the mama has the child they ignore you and act like you don't exist. Your mama is taking out on you the fact that she messed up her life because she got pregnant at a young age by a man that didn't want her. Good example of this. There was a story that I was listening to about a young girl that had a baby, and the father left her for another woman and basically left his child. Okay. Daughter ends up in the hospital. Father's nowhere to be found. And this rich man decides to help her, right? Billionaire decides to help. Helps her with taking care of the medical bills, gives them a really nice apartment, place to stay. And she has a birthmark on the side of her back, where there's another woman that has another daughter that's trying to get him to marry her. Kind of find out they're sisters, but they don't know yet. He ends up falling in love with the woman that basically essentially is not exactly rich. She's not exactly got money, but she has a good heart and she treats him well. So it comes out that she ends up meeting the woman that disrespected her is actually her mother. So the one that's trying to get her daughter to marry him, that is her mother. So she finds out, she's devastated, she's upset, asked the woman, "Why did you give me away?" She said, "Because your dad ended up doing a heist and was nowhere to be found. I was poor. I couldn't afford to keep you, so I gave you to your grandmother. And I ended up leaving, trying to get myself together. When I came back, you were gone." So she ended up meeting another man that got money, got married. She was afraid of what he was going to say if he found out that she had a child that was out there, blah, blah, blah. She had her sister. Now, mind you, the girl was devastated because she could not understand why her mother abandoned her. So, no, she did not talk to her mother like that. And it took a while, but they did build a relationship. But it wasn't one where it was going to be she completely trusted her. She was never going to trust her completely because of what happened. But there was a mutual respect there. So, like I said, you have movies where you see kids that find their adopted parents and decide they want to get payback to their adopted parent because their parent left them by sleeping with their husband or sleeping with their wife. Happens all the time. You have the stepmom that sleeps with the son and the stepdad that sleeps with the daughter. I mean, we see this stuff all the time. So sometimes there is resentment. And there are some kids that come back and they're going to cause havoc to their parents. There are kids that unalive their parents, and there's parents that unalive their kids. And all of this is happening because 9 times out of 10, you either entitled your child, you spoiled your child, and the one time you tell them no, that's it. They're violent. Then you have the child that basically essentially mom and them don't want them because daddy's not in the picture. Every time she look at you, she sees your daddy. And now you're being abused and now you're being essayed. Look, do I need to go down the line of children when it comes to being human trafficking? How many kids are being kidnapped when they on their way home from school? You can't even let your child go to the bus by themselves without worrying about somebody trying to take your child. You got young girls that are being prostituted every single day because their mamas kicked them out at 16 years old. So, like I said, I see both sides of it. Do I think that some kids do need to get kicked out because they don't abide by the rules and they need to get out there and have a hard night life? Yeah. But I ain't saying leave them out there for 2 or 3 years either. But at the end of the day, sometimes you might want to leave them out there for 24 hours just to see how they're going to make it out there. But that don't mean leave them out there forever. But just leave them out there long enough to where you got eyes on them, that you know where they at and you know that they safe. Now, mind you, if your child is stealing because they hooked on drugs, then I understand why you're kicking them out. But instead of kicking them out, just take them to rehab. Problem is, they ain't gonna stay in rehab. If you got a child that constantly keep going back and forth to jail, I understand why you don't have contact with your child. I get it. But majority of that is because you spoiled and entitled your child, or you did something to that child to make that child like that. So in the end, you always gonna have the golden child and the invisible child. And the invisible child is gonna be the one that's not gonna have no contact with their parents because of the abuse and how their lives have been ruined mentally, psychologically, because the reason why you have a lot of overthinkers, those are the ones that went through the most abuse because their emotions didn't mean nothing. So you have people that when they go through something, they're immune to it. And even though they should cry about it, they should be hurt about it, they're so immune because I'm a living testament of that. I am somebody, I could go through something and I won't cry. I brush it off and act like it didn't exist until the point I have to face it. And the one thing about people like myself who have been told since they were a kid to suck it up, that your feelings don't matter, your wants don't matter, your needs don't matter. Trust me when I say this to you. When we break, we the ones that will seriously hurt you. Because the aggression and all the pain and hurt that we got, that we have not cried, haven't dealt with, is going to be taken out on, and that's why there's so many abusers out here. Most of them have been abused. So again, it's technical. Does it make it right? No. But when somebody tell you they done been through a whole bunch of stuff and they trying to relinquish it, let them relinquish it. Let that person relinquish what they've been through. Because sometimes that's what they need. They need somebody that's going to help them to relinquish all that pain. Because there are some people that have a lot of pain. And there are people that just keep poking at that sleeping bear. And then the next thing they know, that bear ends up attacking. And you can't understand why that bear is attacking. And being that bear is attacking, that bear is not going to stop attacking till you stop moving. So again, don't look at somebody because they look like they're a nice person and it seems like they don't have nothing going on, or make it seem like they're fine because they're smiling. That does not mean they're fine. Some people can smile and make people believe that everything is fine. And it's not. It's not fine at all. Not in any capacity is it okay. Not at all. So I just want people to understand that this no parent contact goes very deep for some people. For some people, it is justified why they don't talk to their parents. It is absolutely justified. And for others, it's not. Now, for some, now one thing I will say is if you're not going to talk to your parents, that's fine. You ain't got to. But you do want to make sure they're still living. You do want to make sure they're still breathing. Now, if they on their deathbed or they got cancer and are they going through something, do you want to go and be there for them? Yes, you should. But when it comes down to them asking you for money or asking to use you or take advantage of you, the answer is no. But should you forgive them for yourself? Absolutely. I tell people, don't forgive people for them, forgive them for you. Now, if they continue the nonsense after that, then you don't. The first time, yeah, go ahead on and forgive them. But if they continue to do the same nonsense, then yes, walk away from them and never speak to them again. But still, you still want to make sure your parents are okay. I'm not saying get involved. I'm not saying that if you've been taken advantage of by anybody, that you continue to give them money. I would never say that. But if that person has cancer and they're fighting for cancer, do you go over there and you take care of them as far as, taking them to doctor's appointments, stuff like that, making sure all their affairs in order? Yes. But don't make it where you're paying somebody's rent and there's no contracts in place. No, you don't pay nobody. You don't give nobody no money if there's not no contracts in place. And do not give if it's over $50, make them sign a contract. $20 and $50, you're not gonna lose nothing over it. But anything over $50, you need to get a contract in place. So again, if it ain't your responsibility, don't get involved. So again, do parents use their kids? Absolutely. Do parents take advantage of their kids? Same way a man and a woman take advantage of you in a romantic relationship and friendship, same thing. We're talking about the platonic side of all relationships are the same. It does not matter if it's your parents. It does not matter if it's your friends. It doesn't matter if it's your employees, your managers, your friends. It don't matter. The platonic side of every relationship is the same. It does not matter. So the way your parents treat you will be the way you allow everybody else to treat you. So if you're spoiled and entitled, you're going to want everybody else to take care of you like your parents did. So if you're dealing with somebody that don't want to work, that's because their parents made them that way. Their parents made them lazy. See, a lot of times women talk about it all the time, how they'll meet a man that don't want to work and they talk about why, and then you have men asking why do women end up with bums? Well, guess what? There's a female version of bums as well. So I just wanted to come on here and have this conversation. I was going to do a panel, but they didn't show up, so I'm not going to worry about it. But the next time I do this, it will be a panel of professionals up here. But I just want people to understand that there are many different reasons why this happens. And like I said, sometimes it is justified why the parents don't have nothing to do with the child, and it is justified why the child don't have nothing to do with the parents. But in the end, like I said, in most cases, it's the invisible child that don't have nothing to do with their parents. The golden child don't want nothing to do with them because the parents stop giving and stop doing for them and finally stand up to them. That's why they don't have nothing to do with them. For the parents, it can be because the fact that that child is not listening, the child wants to do what they want to do, but then again, that's entitlement. You go right back to that soft parenting. It doesn't work. I don't know why people think soft parenting works, because it doesn't. So I just wanted to come on here and just have this conversation about this. But like I said, the one thing that I have absolutely learned that I take with me about social media is I really am starting to think that people really don't want to heal. I think some people like chaos. I really do. I think some people like chaos. But then again, like in the Bible it says, you put something out there, those who are meant to come will come. But there are a lot of people that like chaos. They like destruction. They want to see somebody else's destruction. We are in a crazy world. We really are. A crazy, crazy world. And yet they want people to keep having kids. But yet can't afford them. So like I said, welcome to the wonderful world of walking contradictions. Our whole entire world is a walking contradiction. I learned that a long time ago. And when you deal with a world that is a walking contradiction, that pretty much means that everything is not real. It's a siren. It ain't real. So like I said, it until things stop contradicting itself, until people stop making excuses and seeing things for what they truly are, not what they really wanted to be. If people would stop trying to disrespect other people and stop trying because you're on some James Scott Farron, I want what I want and I want it now, the world would be a very different place. But being that people want what they want, they don't care who they hurt, they don't care who they destroy, they don't care what chaos or destruction they bring in somebody's house or life. They don't care nothing about what they steal or what they take. All it is I want what I want and I want it now. And that's just it. And if anybody stands in the way, I'm going to get rid of you and I'm going to do everything I can to destroy you. It's sad, but that's people's mentality nowadays. Nowadays is I'm going to take what somebody else has. Now it's I'm going to live off somebody else and leech off somebody else and suck the life out of somebody else. So like I said, this stuff just trickles down to everybody else in your life. So when it comes to platonic relationships, in conclusion to this conversation, when it comes down to platonic relationships, they're the same across the board. It doesn't matter who it is. Parents, siblings, friends, romantic relationships, jobs, people you don't know, celebrities, it don't matter. It's all the same. It doesn't matter. And like I said, we need to stop thinking there's a difference between your family and your spouse, because it ain't. Now, when it comes to platonically, the problem is we don't talk about the platonic relationships. We only talk about the romantic. We don't talk about how friendships and family and romantic relationships are pretty much one and the same. And the people you work with and work for is pretty much the same. So no relationship is really different except sexual. That is the only difference. And how much you love everybody in your life, that's the point to all of this. So you're committing infidelity every time you are with someone else that ain't the person that you're supposed to be with. That'd be like I spend a lot of time with my mom and my man asking me, why do you always spend some time with your mom? Why are you always with your family all the time? Your friend always asking you, why are you always with the other friend all the time? Your man asking you, why are you always with your friends all the time? You always want to hang out with them all the time. Or vice versa. So anytime you're with other people, you're committing infidelity. Anytime that you're not with the person that is your spouse, then yeah, it will always be that issue where you're spending time with somebody else and the other person is mad because you're spending time. That is not a man woman romantic relationship thing. That is an everybody thing. Because you can have a woman that you think of more like a mother than your own mom. You can have somebody you think of more like a father than your own dad. Somebody you think of more like a sister than your own sister. So, like I said, you could have people that you think that are way more closer to you than your own biological family. You can have somebody like y'all say in these romantic, when y'all be cheating on your wives and your husband, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, and y'all will say, well, this person makes me feel things that you don't feel. Well, guess what? That's the same thing when it comes to everybody else in your life. So if you have a friend and y'all been friends for years, and all of a sudden that person stops hanging out with you, don't hang out no more. Guess what? The same way you feel in that situation, the same way you feel when it comes to your romantic relationships. The only difference is you're having sex with that person. That's it. Other than that, the platonic side of the relationship as a whole are the same. So anytime that your mama is, hanging out with other kids and considering them more like children than you, then you'll say the same thing. How is it that you think of these people more so than you think about me as your daughter or your son? It happens all the time. So, like I said, I get it. I understand. But I just wanted to come on here because I was supposed to do a panel, but they didn't show up. But it's fine. I'm not even mad about it. I don't even get mad when stuff like this happen. But I knew the show had to go on, so I wanted to go ahead and do it because I'm going to post this on my podcast. So I just want to thank y'all for joining me for this episode. I hope this episode helps y'all out. For those of y'all that came in, even though some of y'all on TikTok didn't stay that long, like I said, I pay attention to everything. If I was to up and disappear, I would have people text to me talking about, where are you? We ain't seeing you in a minute. Why am I gonna sit up here and keep doing social media and I'm sitting up here talking to myself? Luckily, this is going on my vocal podcast. So, and I'm building my new channels anyway. So at the end of the day, like I said, people claim they want solutions, they want to fix problems, but they still keep going back to the same behavior. So I'm starting to wonder if that's really the case. Is it really about temporary solutions for a temporary period, or is it about permanent solutions? That seems to be the question. So, with that being said, I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. If y'all want one on one coaching, want to be a guest on my podcast, or be on one of my panels, webinars, seminars, or if you just want to tell me how this podcast has helps you with all three of the podcasts, you minding your own business, from darkness to light. No, yeah, from darkness to light, my YouTube channel, being led to the slaughter, and then also the old you versus the new you, with self-respect leads to self-love, and you minding your own business. So that's where you'll be able to find all of these videos. And so if it resonates on any of the podcasts, please email me at asha.mariama01@gmail.com. That's asha.mariama01@gmail.com. Also, if you want to sponsor my channel or you want me to promote products, you can email me there as well. And with that being said, I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Without y'all, there is no me. I'd be nothing else, nothing without y'all. Friday, I have a conversation with someone about being gay and being a pastor. That's going to be interesting. So, yeah, we're going to actually do the podcast where we'll be discussing being your true self and being who you truly are and accepting who you truly are. So, for all of you out here who are gay and lesbians and you don't feel that you are accepted and you feel like that no one understands you, this conversation applies to y'all as well, because the gay community is the number one community that goes through it the worst when it comes to not being accepted for who they truly are. And I think this conversation that we're going to do on Friday, that I'm going to post sometime this week, probably Sunday. I definitely want you guys to hear it, because like I said, a lot of people are hiding the real versions of themselves and hiding who they truly are. So I definitely feel like, it's a conversation that needs to be had, because there's too many people that are not being who they truly are. So with that being said, I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Without y'all, if there is no me, I'll be nothing without y'all. I just wanted to have this conversation because I feel like it needed to be had. I will be doing the season about the golden child versus the invisible child and the differences between the way that both of them are treated, the no child, no parent context. So I'm really excited about that. But please don't think I'm being mean because I'm not. I'm just being honest. I'm just being real. I can't be any other way. With that being said, I will see you guys later. Have a very good day until tomorrow because I got to do my From Darkness to Light and this weekend. I love y'all and I'll see y'all later. Bye, guys.